Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 109 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
And we didn't do a whole heck of a lot this weekend that we have to talk about. I mean, at least vegan food-wise or going places-wise.
Just in general, we didn't really do much of anything this weekend.
No, Sam's brother came up. We played some games. We went out to dinner with him, but we just went to Applebee's.
Because it was close and convenient.
Yeah, and had their, what do they have, a Beyond?
They have an Impossible Burger.
Or an Impossible Burger, which isn't bad.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's their only option.
Yeah, nothing to write home about, of course,
I mean,
but it's fine.
You have to say no cheese and no mayo and all that jazz. But
right.
But, so not a whole lot of exciting news to report on that front anyway.
No, not at all. And we have another really mellow weekend coming up.
I know.
Which is so unusual.
It's kind of been nice.
It really has. Yeah. So, 2 weekends in a row of, not running around here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. And we can get our ducks back in a row. And like all of our Veg Fest stuff, all of our totes and stuff really need reorganized because, we've been going and things just get kind of tossed in totes. And
sure,
there can be some organization taking place.
Indeed.
Maybe over the next week and next weekend and whatever. But where are we going to be next?
Well, our next in-person event will be the Halloween and third-year anniversary pop-up market at the Vegan Center in Tonawanda.
Yeah, that should be a good time.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be Saturday, October 28th.
Yeah, so the chili people, the Spotted Goose, they'll be there. And
awesome.
Yeah, they'll be serving chili, and you can get vegan cheese and vegan sour cream with it.
Oh, awesome.
I remember I got that last year, and it was really good.
It was really good.
So I don't know what other food vendors are going to be there, but it's usually a pretty good time.
Yeah.
And then our next exciting event.
Our big trip.
Yeah.
That I am seriously counting down the days as we get closer and closer is we are heading to Veg Fest UK.
Woohoo. At London Olympia National on November 18th and 19th. It's a 2-day event.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're headed to London. We'll be in London for a week.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time.
Oh, so excited.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've crossed the pond since COVID.
Yeah, it's been so long.
So yeah, we're both really, really excited. Can't wait.
I know I am. And so, of course, after that happens, we'll have a lot to report.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure so many stories coming from London.
Yeah.
Prepare for the London thing to be a 2-episode series.
Maybe. I mean, it is a 2-day event, so...
Well, it's a 2-day event, and we're doing some other fun stuff while we're there.
Yeah.
It's not just about Veg Fest.
No, we're doing a vegan tea.
We are. So we found out not too long ago that the Warner Brothers studio tour that is Harry Potter based, so essentially the UK version of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Right.
Where they have all of the, original movie sets and costumes and all of that stuff. They now do a vegan high tea.
Yeah. That should be fun.
Yeah, totally. So we have a reservation to have a vegan high tea one afternoon while we're there.
That's cool. A vegan YouTuber that I follow was recently in London, and they did the vegan tea at the Savoy.
Oh, fancy.
That was super fancy.
Oh, that would be fancy.
Yeah, the little sandwiches and the little cakes, they were so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know if we're fancy enough for the Savoy.
We are not fancy enough for the Savoy.
I know I'm not fancy.
We're not fancy people.
We're really not. Although the idea of going to tea at the Savoy, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, her mother got her this trip. They went together, and it was her birthday.
Oh, nice.
So it was like kind of a birthday present for her, this vegan tea at the Savoy.
Oh, very nice.
So, yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be so cool.
Yeah. But I don't think we're fancy enough. I don't think they'd let us in the door.
Excuse me, you are not fancy enough.
That's right. You are not fancy enough for us.
We do not allow jeans and sweatshirts.
Right.
In the Savoy.
Yeah.
Go home and dress appropriately.
Yeah. It would be something like that, I'm sure.
I'm positive that we are not going to high tea at the Savoy. But it would be fun. It was very pretty. It's beautiful there.
Oh, I'm sure.
So that's what we'll be doing. That's coming up in November, like I said.
So those are our 2 upcoming things. There will be one more pop-up market in December.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That will kind of, round out the year for events for us.
Yeah, and we'll tell you more about that when it gets closer to the date.
Indeed.
And all that jazz.
Yep.
Kind of on that note, if you want to get your hands on some of Sam's beautiful vegan knitwear and jewelry and other things that she makes, you can get them at her Etsy site, which is Cucumber Craftworks on Etsy.
Absolutely. And hopefully with this kind of mellow weekend that we have coming up, we can get some photography done.
Let's do that.
Of some of those pieces that need to be uploaded to the site.
We've been threatening to do that. And
yeah, the Etsy site is a little bit outdated. Because I got an order this morning, which was really nice, but I had to pull a couple of things down because I realized, oh my gosh, I sold those.
Yeah, you can't have them up if you don't have them anymore.
They're still sitting there. So, yeah, so I've got to make some changes.
Oh, what else? Oh, wanted to remind people that Hoodies for the Homeless 716 is again accepting donations of gently used hoodies and warm clothing. And they have a new donation drop-off site. You can drop off at the original location, which was Wellness in the Village in Alden, New York at 13219 Broadway in Alden, New York. And their new drop-off location is a State Farm Insurance office at 209 Main Street in East Aurora, New York.
Awesome.
So if you have any gently used hoodies or warm clothing and you're in that area, we highly recommend dropping those things off.
Sure do.
Highly encourage that. Here's something exciting.
What's that?
We have a recipe.
Oh, it's about time. I feel like it's been a while.
We had one last week.
Oh.
It hasn't been that long. And last week you actually said the same exact thing.
Did I really?
Yes. I mean, I know we got off of the recipe.
I'm becoming predictable.
Well, no, but we got off the recipe rotation for a while, so I understand why you're feeling that way.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did Fraser's Pizza last week.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. But this week, we're doing a listener recipe. So here is this week's listener recipe of the week. This week's recipe was submitted to us by listener Emily Alsup. Thank you so much, Emily, for submitting this recipe. It was delicious, and the recipe was dilly white bean and cucumber salad.
I was actually really surprised by this recipe, just because, number one, it's so light and so refreshing. It's really more summer fare.
It is summery, and I've been kind of hanging on to this recipe. Emily sent us this recipe months ago.
Okay.
And I don't know why I never got around to making it, but I also had a bunch of leftover fresh dill from last week's recipe that I wanted to use before it started to wilt.
Smart.
And I happen to remember that I saw this recipe that Emily had sent to us. And so that's why I made it. And I made it along with a patty melt, which is something I haven't had in literally decades.
I'm honestly not sure I've ever had one.
Oh, it's
until today.
It's a diner thing, the patty melt.
I know. We used to go out to, some of those like kind of chainy diners like Friendly's or Perkins or stuff like that when I was a kid.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, I think my dad liked patty melts.
Oh, really?
It's either my dad or my mom who likes patty melts. I can't remember which.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made an Impossible Burger patty melt. So you just make like a thin burger with, of course, cheese. I did mine with some caramelized onion and some Dijon.
Yeah. The caramelized onion was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And then you cook it in a pan, the whole sandwich in a pan like you would
a grilled cheese,
a toasted cheese or something like that. But I thought it went well with this recipe. This recipe actually comes from a recipe site called From My Bowl, which is a very cute name for a recipe site.
It's adorable.
And the recipe is written by Caitlin Shoemaker, and we'll include a link to the recipe so that you too can make this dilly white bean and cucumber salad, because it was really good.
It was really good. Light, refreshing, but also really filling. And I think because the primary ingredient was white beans. Were they Great Northern beans?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Great Northern beans. So there's, quite a bit of substance to the salad that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But still, we got those lovely cucumbers and some really nice green onions and some radish.
Yep.
And that fresh dill was just fantastic.
Yeah. And then you make a dressing for it. And it's a really light dressing.
Yeah.
And it's just really good with all that dill, like Sam said.
Yeah. It was wonderful.
Good. Yeah. So thanks again, Emily, for submitting that recipe. And if you would like us to try some of your favorite vegan recipes, don't hesitate to send along your recipes. You can either email them to us at compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com or just DM them to us at our Instagram or private message us on Facebook, because we want to try out all the things that you make at home that you love.
Indeed we do.
Indubitably. The next thing we wanted to talk about is something that I've been tossing back and forth whether or not we should even talk about it, just because it's kind of devastating.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that you've heard about this, but in our Noteworthy section, we're going to talk about what took place at the Progetto Cuori Liberi animal sanctuary in Italy.
So on September 20th, 2023, I hate that this happened on my birthday.
Yeah.
10 pig residents of Progetto Cuori Liberi were shot by police under the guise of protecting from an outbreak of African swine fever.
It was highly protested. There were tons of people there supporting the sanctuary, and they did a peaceful protest to try to persuade the authorities to leave the animals alone, as they are not part of the food system, that they would never end up in the food system.
Yep.
That they are highly monitored and vetted.
And that they were all healthy.
Yeah, I think they did have one or two that were healthy carriers of ASF.
Okay.
But because these pigs were never going to end up in the food system, they're not free-range pigs.
Right.
They could not come in contact with any other pigs. It really seemed like the authorities in this town, it's Zinasco, Pavia in Italy, that they really kind of don't really feel fondly of animal sanctuaries. I mean, that's just kind of the impression that I was getting from all of the news stories that I saw. On September 20th, 10 pig residents were killed by the authorities due to an outbreak, like Sam said, amid the protests of volunteers who tried to stop it but were dispersed by the police. And they were dispersed pretty violently.
Just as a reference, in the province of Pavia alone, where Progetto Cuori Liberi is located, about 34,000 pigs have been killed to date since the beginning of the swine fever epidemic. Granted, those 34,000 pigs were destined for slaughter anyway. They were in the food system. They just happened to die earlier than planned. But the 10 pigs that were hosted by the sanctuary had been saved from farms and were supposed to be safe and able to live their lives in peace. But that sadly did not happen.
It did not. According to the OIPA, which is the Organization for the Protection of Animals, the 10 pigs, if kept alive, would have been the symbol of the redemption of the human side that should guide laws, regulations, and ordinances. Instead, they entered ignoring the demands of activists and animal protection organizations. It was preferred to treat them, as always, as objects or commodities. So I don't know if you know about this occurring, but we just wanted to put it out there so people were aware of what happened. And so that you could maybe reach out to Progetto Cuori Liberi and see if there's any way that you can help them while they're going through this devastating time.
Yeah. I think it's also good to be reminded that, certainly here in the States, we think of farmed animal sanctuaries as just that, places of sanctuary, places where animals are safe, where they are free from the threat of imminent harm. And it seems like perhaps that's not always the case.
Yeah, certainly not in this case. Apparently, the killing of these pigs was scheduled for the Friday previous, but activists mobilized and occupied the sanctuary, stopping it. However, the following Wednesday, the police in riot gear entered the sanctuary, triggering a scuffle with the activists present, some of whom were injured. The Anti-Vivisection League said that it was an unacceptable violence. Isolated and protected animals are killed when instead hunters are allowed to continue to kill wild boars and carry them around, contributing to the spread of PSA. We are devastated and angry at this terrible injustice. Now, that's a huge point. The government is allowing people to hunt wild boar. And this particular swine flu, this particular virus,
affects wild boar.
That's why, in my mind, it seems like they kind of pinpointed this farm.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
We don't have any evidence to the contrary.
Right.
So, it's kind of easy to think that that might be the case.
Yeah, that's how it seems to me. Anyway, our hearts go out to everybody that works at that sanctuary, and especially to all the animals that lost their lives.
Yes.
Let's move on to our main topic, which, funny enough, is good news in the vegan world.
Well, thank heaven. I mean, after that, come on, we need to lighten things up a little bit.
Yeah, hey, there's a lot of really bad news in the world right now. So I figured we did need to focus on some good news.
Yeah.
For a change, right?
I like that. Yes, let us please.
So the first story we're going to talk about is that Swiss government encourages reduced meat consumption in climate strategy.
Indeed. The Swiss government has launched a new climate strategy for agriculture and food, which outlines the benefits of reducing meat consumption in the country. The strategy states that the greenhouse gases emitted to produce food must be reduced by 2/3 per person by 2050, compared to 2020 levels. Emissions from domestic agricultural production must be reduced by at least 40% compared to 1990 levels. The strategy states that a diet rich in plant foods and with less meat contains benefits for both health and the environment. It also notes that compared to official nutritional guidelines, meat consumption is too high in the country, while consumption of dairy products, legumes, and vegetables is too low. I find it interesting that they're saying that the consumption of dairy is too low.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Along with, I'm sure that it's accurate that legumes, fruits, and vegetables is on the low side, but I find it interesting that they put dairy in there as well. And that even with, the quest to reduce greenhouse gases by 2/3 per person by 2050, which is an admirable goal, dairy contributes a great deal to greenhouse gas. Yeah. And so reducing meat consumption while recommending an increase in dairy consumption doesn't seem to be particularly productive.
No, that seems counterproductive.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting that they are singling out dairy as something that they're encouraging people to consume. But I don't know how the dairy lobby works in the Swiss government, so that's something that we could look into.
Yes. Now, according to 2018 data, Swiss people consumed an average of 52.06 kilograms of meat from land animals per year, mainly pork, poultry, and beef, as well as 8.72 kilograms of fish and shellfish. That is around 166 grams a day of meat from land and sea animals. Meanwhile, the daily average consumption of fruits and vegetables is only 3.6 portions, less than the recommended 5 a day. As reported by Swiss Info, Michael Beer of the Federal Office for Food Safety and Veterinary Affairs said 2 to 3 portions of meat a week is a maximum from a health point of view, and we are eating 3 times too much.
And that's even more here in the States.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Way more.
Way more.
But do we get...
Yes, you and I equals we. You're not wrong.
Do we also get 3.5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? I mean, I guess so.
Yeah, we do.
We don't eat 3 meals a day.
We don't, generally speaking.
But we certainly pack in the fruits and the vegetables in the meals that we eat.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really do. So I would say in general, I mean, certainly if one of those meals is a big salad, yes.
Yeah.
We absolutely do, without question. And then some.
Yeah.
We probably get all 5 of our servings in one meal.
Probably.
Yeah.
Now, disturbingly, the British meat industry has waded into this debate, claiming that less meat and more plant foods is not necessary. It's not necessarily healthier or more environmentally friendly. What is going on in Britain?
I don't know. Because I have no idea what source that is coming from, because we're talking about the British meat industry has waded into the debate. We're not talking about Britain in general.
Yeah, but
we all know that
we know how that works.
Britain is kind of, leading the charge, really, along with Germany, when it comes to veganism. Like, they're doing really quite well.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the British meat industry claiming that less meat and more plant-based food is not necessary.
True.
The U.S. meat industry does the same thing.
I know, true.
Yeah.
I didn't take that into account. That
No,
it said
absolutely
the British
not.
meat industry and
So
not the
what's going on in Britain? The same thing that's going on here.
So I guess we'll just keep our eye on things.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and still going back to your question about what's going on in Britain.
Yeah.
Well, experts from bodies including the University at Oxford have stated that Western countries need to dramatically reduce meat consumption to avoid climate collapse. Across all environmental metrics, plant foods like nuts and vegetables score far better than animal-based foods. And multiple studies show the health benefits of eating more plant-based foods and fewer animal-based foods. So that's also going on in Britain. So it's the same thing as is going on here. Research, the science is showing that plant-based or vegan lifestyles are healthier and better for the environment.
Right.
But the industry wants to maintain the status quo. The meat industry, the dairy industry, the egg industry. Mm-hmm. And so it's that constant back and forth. I don't think that's anything new, and it's certainly not unique to Britain.
No.
So there's your answer to what's going on in Britain.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for answering that question, that looming question in my mind. What's going on in Britain? As much as I don't want government overreach in anybody's life, there definitely needs to be systemic change here, right?
Well, sure. I mean, and that's globally.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Globally.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, if we want to, avoid, the impending climate collapse, then yes, there needs to be widespread global systemic change in our food system.
Yeah. And as much as this is good news that the Swiss government is encouraging this, our government also says that they encourage that. And other governments say that they encourage that. But encouraging and making it happen are two different things, right?
Absolutely. And you also have to look at what's underlying it. So they're encouraging reduced meat consumption, but they're also encouraging increased dairy consumption.
Right.
Which might be a net zero.
Yeah.
It might be a neutral.
I think it would cancel
maybe
any reduction in meat consumption out.
Yeah.
If we're talking environmentally, at least.
Probably.
So, but Germany is doing the right thing.
Yep.
Germany's doing more than encouraging people to eat less meat.
Yes. Meat consumption in Germany actually hit a record low last year, and that is partially because German farmers are being offered incentives to move away from farming pigs.
And that's how you do it.
Yeah. So farmers in the northwestern German state of Lower Saxony will be supported to transition away from pig farming as the country seeks to make its agricultural sector more diversified and sustainable. The Agricultural Investment Promotion Program, or AFP, administered through the Lower Saxony Chamber of Agriculture, accepts funding applications from farmers seeking support for their business. New rules mean that pig farmers who reduce their pig herds or quit pig farming altogether will have preferential access to funding.
That's how you do it.
Right there.
That's systemic change.
Absolutely.
That's the change that we need to be making. We need to make it worthwhile for farmers to walk away from animal agriculture.
That's right. If there's no incentive, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
There has to be an honest-to-God, appreciable incentive.
And apparently veganism is on the rise in Germany.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, we've talked a couple of times that, our next major trip essentially needs to be to Berlin.
Berlin.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Because as a vegan city, my God.
It's becoming like the vegan capital of the world.
Yeah, which is currently Tel Aviv.
We know that, yes.
Yes. But right now is not a good time to go to Tel Aviv.
Yeah,
sadly.
No. Certainly not now. No. The number of vegans in Germany doubled to 2.6 million, 3.2% of the population.
That's awesome. That is really awesome.
That's like almost a full 3% more than there is here.
Yes.
In the States.
And not only are 3.2% of the population vegan, another 10% are vegetarian.
Yeah.
So put that together and you've got, almost 15% of the German population who is not consuming meat. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And now, at the bottom of this article is something that we've been talking about since we were talking about the checkoff programs and all that, and how there needs to be incentives for produce farmers, right? Mm-hmm. So in Lower Saxony, new regulations in the APF also make it easier for fruit and vegetable growers to secure funding, since they in themselves also provide sufficient improvement in environmental and climate protection.
That is awesome.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
It's good to see at least one government is doing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And we can only hope that other governments follow suit.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing what this accomplishes in Germany. And obviously the incentivization of moving away from pig farming is being spurred because there has been a considerable drop in the demand for pig products.
Right.
There's been a considerable drop in the demand for pork. So we know that demand for beef, for chicken, for fish is dropping globally, but it will be interesting to see how many countries actually act on that by saying, oh, here's an opportunity. Demand for these products are dropping, and these are products that we subsidize. Why don't we take some of these subsidies and give them to the industries that are now in demand to help farmers who might be in these failing industries and help them move into something that is both more productive and more sustainable and healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For people and for the earth.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So go Germany.
Way to go, Germany. We'll definitely be following that.
Absolutely.
And then here's a story about a Dutch dairy giant, Boermarke, that is announcing plans to go fully plant-based as milk sales fall.
Awesome. You gotta love that. And this again is another instance of what we were seeing in Germany, that it's industry responding to demand.
Which is the only thing that's ever going to make change.
Absolutely.
We all know it's
maybe not the only, but it's certainly one of the
main things that's going to spark change is the money. I mean, if there's no longer money in it, and if governments like Germany, for instance, can make a point out of incentivizing companies and farmers to go plant-based, the money will follow.
Right. So Boermarke has announced it will be turning its operations fully plant-based and moving toward a more sustainable production model. The heritage company, which was established in 1987, initially launched a dairy-free line called Very in 2015. Among the products on offer were coconut yogurts with vegan cheeses and ice cream made from a range of plant milk bases, joining the range in the following years. Since then, particularly in the last 2 years, the Netherlands has seen an increase in sales of dairy alternatives. At the same time, conventional milk has seen a drop in sales, prompting Boermarke to announce it will pivot to plant-based. Green Queen reports that the company plans to spin off its dairy division and launch its vegan lineup across Europe by 2026.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. Yeah, and in the process, apparently they're reporting that they're going to retain all of their employees, which is awesome.
Awesome.
And its vegan line will be continued to be sold under the Very label. That's VAIRY, as well as via supermarket private label offerings.
That's great. Absolutely great. Love that.
So I guess that's a little bit of evidence that, because you always hear that vegan consumerism isn't going to change anything.
You do hear that quite frequently.
Yeah.
And I understand the reasoning for that.
Me totally. I'm in that camp that it won't.
That we need policy change
right.
more than anything else, because that gets much closer to the heart of the matter.
It's
really.
Broader change, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I think more immediate change as well. But there is something to be said for companies responding to where the money is going.
Yeah, I mean, stories like this kind of give me a little hope that our vegan consumerism can make a difference.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It is good to know that it's not entirely in vain. This next story, I got to say, this is one of my favorites. And
I figured this would be.
Hello. Okay, so coming from thisisvegan.com, a study from the United States shows that 81% of students eat vegan if possible.
81%.
81%
Yes.
of college students. This is mind-blowing to me. So according to a study by food service provider Sodexo, 81% of students choose a vegan dish when it is offered as a standard option. For the study, dining halls at 3 different universities in the United States were examined. For the study, 8 dishes were offered in the dining halls, including 1 option with meat and 1 option vegan. On standard plant-based days, only the vegan dish was presented. The meat alternative was available upon request. On control days, both the vegan dish and the dish with meat were actively offered. The results of the study show on the standard plant-based days, 81% of the students chose the vegan option, a significant increase from the 31% of students who chose the plant-based option when both options were actively offered.
Yeah, so here's another case of if you build it, they will come, right?
Right.
You
But
hear
if
that
you
all
put
the
it on offer and you make meat available only by request, more people than you think will just go for the vegan option.
Yeah, because you often hear places say, look, we don't provide vegan options because people aren't buying it.
Right.
Well, it's actually the other way around.
Yes.
They're not buying it because you're not offering it.
Right, exactly. I recently went to one of the grab-and-go cafes on campus where I occasionally go to grab something for lunch because I know that they do have a couple of vegan options each day. And so, I grabbed my vegan option of the day and I mentioned that I thought they should have a little bit more variety. And also a little more consistency in their offerings. Because when I head there, I never know exactly what I'm going to get. And so they said, oh, well, they don't offer more options because nobody buys them. But the thing is, most days, if I go down there, it's hard to tell whether there just weren't many options to begin with or whether they're sold out.
Right.
And sometimes it looks like it's more of a sold out thing than there just weren't many to begin with. But it's hard to tell. I do think, though, if, as you said, if you build it, they will come. If people know that the options are there, then they'll pick them up.
They will. And I think that's evidenced in, all right, I don't know if you've heard, but like right now Taco Bell is doing a thing where they're offering vegan nacho cheese with their nacho fries.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, but like always, it's a limited time offer.
Sure.
And so all the vegans go crazy and everybody's posting on Instagram, I got the vegan nacho cheese and blah, blah, blah. And it's so good. And then it'll go away. So corporations know that they can use vegans to promote their brand.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But then they just drop it. And they drop us, they're like, we don't need you anymore.
Right.
We're going back to everything else that we sell because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But
one thing interesting that came out of this study, based on the results of the study, Sodexo concluded that using plant-based foods as a default can promote positive attitudes towards vegan meals. If you stop thinking of the vegan meal as the exception, and you think of it as the rule, that normalization of plant-based foods could make the option more popular, especially with Gen Z students.
Yeah.
The Better Food Foundation confirms that Gen Z students are not only open to a plant-based diet, but generally prefer places that offer plant-based meals.
Go Gen Z.
Indeed. Go Gen Z. We love that.
Yeah, we love Gen Z.
Now, here's the other great thing. So last year, this food service company, Sodexo, announced plans to convert half of its menu options to plant-based by 2025. This is also intended to achieve the organization's climate goals. Because the results of the study also showed that on standard vegan days, food-related emissions dropped by 23.6%.
Wow, that's significant.
Yes. And that's at 3 universities. Can you imagine if this was going on at every university.
Yeah,
across the country.
Yeah, especially like the way it is here with the state-run universities. It could be like a state-run program,
That'd
right?
be amazing.
And it would be you and your brother were just talking about how many universities are there in the SUNY system? 63 or something, you said?
64.
64 universities. If 64 universities in the state of New York offered mostly plant-based food, just think of the changes they could make, right?
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Be great.
It would be great.
So awesome. How do we make that happen?
I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
Let's look into that. How do we make that happen?
Yeah, seriously.
There must be people that you could email,
Yeah. I mean, from my understanding, and I don't know the ins and outs of all of it, but food service in institutions like a state university is a rather complicated system and quite entrenched.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah. So
even in like high schools, the food system is quite entrenched.
Yes. So, but I think it's worth researching.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, we'll have to get on that.
Closer to home, meaning closer to our home, there was a vegan meal provider called Unbeetable Meals that I've been following over the last, 5 years or so. And they were one of those places where they made like prepared meals, like home cooked kind of meals packaged, and you could pick them up and, take them home and eat them later, or, stock up on them so that you had them during the week. Well, they recently opened a brick and mortar in Schenectady, New York. It's a fully vegan restaurant, pub, and arcade.
That's so awesome.
I want to go there so bad.
Okay, so let's go.
Yeah, they just recently they've been open for, I want to say a couple weeks now, but they just recently, as recently as maybe this past Saturday, had their like ribbon cutting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so this article coming from the Daily Gazette out of Schenectady says, the wait is over. Schenectady's first vegan bar, restaurant, and arcade, Unbeatable, officially opened its doors to the public in downtown. Offering a wide selection of vegan food and drinks, the establishment also has dozens of different video arcade and board games, making it the first business of its kind in the area, said owner Chelsea Heilman, who's 33. She says, Chelsea says, we're just so happy to be open, very relieved. I'm just really proud of the way everyone has really come together, and we're a very well-oiled machine so far.
Unbeatable is located at 148 Clinton Street in Schenectady and opened to the public back in September. They're open from 4 to 10 on weekdays and 4 to 11 on weekends. Eventually, Heilman plans to also be open for lunch on weekends as well.
Yeah, I really want to go up there and check that out.
Yeah, that would be pretty great. So in addition to an entire menu of vegan food, the 2,400 square foot business has dozens of games, including Ms. Pac-Man, Jurassic Park, fighting games, pinball, your favorite.
Yes, pinball is my favorite.
Basketball, skee ball. I love skee ball. Crane games,
you
air
be the big
hockey.
fudge.
Yeah, I could. I'm not that good.
That's a How I Met Your Mother reference.
It is.
If you've ever watched that show, Marshall on How I Met Your Mother is a huge skee ball fan, and he goes by Big Fudge.
Yes. So skee ball, crane games, air hockey, ping pong, and a large collection of board games on one side of the space, and on the other side is a bar and seating area for dining.
It sounds like a really fun place.
It really does. I think we're going to have to make it out there at some point.
Yeah. It looks like, see, some of their menu offerings are items such as loaded hot dogs, quesadillas, mac and cheese, tacos, burgers, vegan chicken sandwiches, and brownie sundaes. Oh, I love a good brownie sundae.
With a variety of different appetizers, main dishes, desserts, drinks, and a kids menu. So, fun.
Yeah, apparently the concept for her business came from her visiting a ping pong bar, which had an Asian fusion restaurant in the front and numerous ping pong tables in the back.
That's awesome.
That sounds fun. Yeah. So she hopes that Unbeatable will help families get out and give them something fun to do. She said the cozy and relaxed atmosphere in the large space will allow for customers to not feel rushed out the door, and customers are able to hang out and enjoy themselves, have dinner, drinks, and play some games. The space has a number of cozy chairs and table spaces for people to play games. And she was able to get a lot of unique thrifted pieces and wall decorations. I can't wait to check this place out.
Yep, we're going to have to do it. Road trip.
Yeah, so that again is Unbeatable, and it's Unbeat, B-E-E-T-able. I'm just so glad to see them thriving like that, you know?
It is. It's a great thing.
They went from just like providing vegan meals, I think out of a home kitchen, to this 2,400 square foot location. So I hope that they're enormously successful.
Me too.
So that's just a little bit of the good news that we found when I scoured the interwebs on, looking for some good news in the vegan world, because we can all use some good news.
We sure can.
Now, normally we would be hopping right into our reason to be vegan, but we are currently researching new lists of reasons so that we're not repeating ourselves.
Yeah. So we're looking for some fresh new perspectives on reasons to be vegan. I mean, we've got plenty of them, obviously, and we've talked about many, many, many of them.
We have. I mean, we went through 72.
Yes, but we didn't do all of them.
No.
We did most of them, but not all of them. You know, we've also been hitting the Humane League's 23 Reasons to Go Vegan. But there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of duplication,
sure.
Especially when you're talking about animal welfare and you're talking about the environment and you're talking about health. The same issues come up again and again and again. So we're going to skip over the reason to be vegan this week while we do a little more research.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We, like you said, we don't want to, we don't want to be redundant. Mm-mm. So we'll just talk about something really exciting.
Must be listener shout out time.
It's listener shout out.
Just want to give a shout out to all my fans watching. I love you guys. I love you.
This week's listener shout out goes to Adrian George. Adrian works with the Animal Save movement in Ontario, Canada. She's a vegan, animal lover, vegan advocate, and active member of her vegan community. Thank you so much for listening, Adrian.
Yeah, Adrian, thank you for listening. And contact us with your t-shirt size and address so we can send you a Compassion and Cucumbers swag bag. You can send us that information by either emailing us at compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com, or, as always, you can DM us on Instagram or Facebook.
Now that brings us to our vegan org of the week. And this week we are talking about Chili's on Wheels. Through services such as meal shares, food demos, clothing drives, and mentorship, Chili on Wheels' network of partners work in areas all around the country to help make veganism accessible to communities in need. They provide networks of support and build strong, empowered communities within the areas they serve, and work with groups providing food to the community to transition their food offerings to plant-based meals. Chili's on Wheels believes that an empowered community is key in dismantling systematic inequalities that prevent veganism from being attainable by poor and low-income communities. Through their networks of support, they are collectively building alternate systems to make veganism accessible to the areas they serve.
Yeah, and to learn more or to get involved in Chili's on Wheels, you can go to chilisonwheels.org, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes. I guess it's time to wrap this baby up.
Go for it. Wrap it up.
As always, we encourage you to join the AFA Vegan Voter Hub, don't we? We always encourage you to do that.
Always.
We also encourage you to support them in any way that you can, be that monetarily or just sharing their social media, however you can support them. Because the Agriculture Fairness Alliance is lobbying on our behalf so that our vegan voices are heard. If you want to be included in the conversation, join the Vegan Voter Hub. The link, as always, is in the show notes.
Well, it's time to sign off.
You did it again.
You did. You just listened to episode 109 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, and there's nothing left to say but where cukes and compassion are always the fashion. On the podcast. Thanks, James.
Have a great week.
Talk to you next Tuesday.
We love you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye. The end.
If you'd like to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, well, you can do that by hopping on over to our Patreon page and becoming a patron. We have all the recipes from our vegan kitchen series up there, and we'll be adding some patron-only episodes in the near future. So thank you for supporting us at whatever level that you choose, and thank you again for listening to Compassion and Cucumbers podcast.